again, you notice this judging group is practically all men. Well, there looks like there's three women. And this is Bunny Guinness, a very well-known landscape designer, giving me a very dirty look because you're not supposed to photograph the judges. They don't like it because they vote on whether they're going to give a gold or whatever they're going to give for a garden. And they don't want to be on record, as it were, publicly for their design preferences. Um, so they go through in the morning and award the medals. The gardens usually have a theme. This is a put on by the Cancer Society, and the sculpture was supposed to represent if we all work together, we can bring about a cure to cancer. So once again, there's a message. The gardens give messages. And I think we forget that frequently in garden design. Taking a quick break from garden design in the big pavilion, we see the bonsai exhibit, and that's a beautiful little azalea that must be, I don't know how many years old. I think it says, 1965. Well, that's pretty old. And then I don't even know what the darling little plant next to it is. It doesn't seem to have a label, but that's the ultimate bonsai. God, forget to water that in one day and it's death to the plant. Now, the plants, the peonies, but I happen to know that Sherry and Barb do love peonies. And this exhibit with the little parasols, those aren't there as part of the design. You can see a bunch of film crew guys going around in the back with their cameras and their vests so that we don't get run overs when we're standing in the road filming. But these are the people that are driving down the road are vans from the different companies coming and bringing more plant material. But these little parasols will keep the peonies from going too far into bloom before the show starts. And then over here on the edge, and I'm not sure if you see the edge of the palms, but you can have tropical gardens and the palm trees. Once again, at the beginning, they weren't as concerned about the carbon footprint. Now they are. Palm trees, one of the gardens was a successful garden, was Sheikh from Abu Dhabi, grew some palm trees in his garden in Abu Dhabi and then loaded them up into his private jet and flew them to Chelsea for his garden there. And we actually sent a crew down to Abu Dhabi to film them being loaded in the jet. But on the whole, that doesn't happen now. Most of the time, the plant materials come from Europe. There's lots of great garden nurseries in Belgium, say nothing of in the UK. And the trees come from, usually olive trees come from Spain and Italy. Or you can wander around and just sort of get ideas. This is on the bottom right-hand corner. This is a Zen meditation garden, and you can see the blue mat and the barbells that if you need a corner in your garden. I think it's sort of nice, but I think you could just set up your own meditation corner anywhere in your garden and get all the benefits of forest bathing. Now, this is a garden which is a beautiful traditional garden by Laurent Perrier. And just as their champagne is first class, their garden is first class. One thing that's interesting is that a lot of times the plant material, everything's in bloom, but it wouldn't really be in bloom if it were growing in the garden. But it's just, it's fantasy, it's eye candy. And so we say, oh, how wonderful. Now, as I mentioned earlier, children are really encouraged. This is press day, and it must be some very special little school group that's there, and they're all matching jackets so they can keep track of the little dears. But they're encouraged to participate, even at a young age, in something that is a national gardening event. And there are lots and lots of exhibits geared to younger people, as is their website. And I think that Barbara at the end will put the link to their website online. And I suggest that all of you go and take a look at it, because there's all sorts of very interesting things. And there's a lot of little videos now on how to, build a compost heap or whatever. This garden was the this won Best in Show. This was done by a superstar gardener, Irish, Dermot Gavin. And you can see the wonderful, this is his little pavilion that you sit in and enjoy your very traditional, very classic English garden with your clipped boxwood. I like these little boxwood. They were not the circular balls. They sort of look like they've been pancaked down slightly. That's the new style in round boxwood balls. But you see what down in the right-hand corner is what holds it. So you need one of those too, a big, huge crane to lift and lower your garden pavilion. Now, after this, you think that this was, you couldn't do anything better. Well, he decided to one up himself the next year, and he built an 80-foot high tower. Now, the critics were, they said, this is a giant garden for a man with a giant ego. And the men in the red coats are the British, the pensioners that live at the hospital. And the Royal Horticulture said, oh, it's too dangerous, and nobody is going to be allowed to go up into this garden at any point in time. And up in the garden, there are all sorts of wonderful things, like little houses with veggies growing on top of them. There's an Airstream trailer. Dermot has an office up here at the top, and I'll show you how later on how he gets out of his office, because it's very clever. And these pensioners said, no, no, we are all going to go up for the photo op, because, I mean, we've protected the British Empire, so surely we can be safe climbing a pyramid like this. And so they did. And up in the pyramid, there is a little Victorian greenhouse with vegetables growing. There's a swing. And here is this tunnel slide that goes from Dermot's office on the very top to the bottom. And I went down it. Let me tell you, I was never so sorry about doing anything in my life as going down that tunnel. It was just awful. Anyway, it was exciting, and it got him a lot of attention. Now, moving back again to traditional gardens, but in traditional gardens, this is a sort of not exactly your everyday garden with these, the boxwood balls. Here's a couple round ones, but you see most of them get squashed down. And I think that I have 3 new box balls in my yard, and I think I'm going to go out and squash them down tomorrow. Oops, going the wrong way. Or if you would like to have a little bit more action in your garden, you can, once again, have a lot of plant material. And one thing that's interesting here, these benches and chairs are like socially distanced apart. I don't know what that was all about, because this was long before COVID, or before germs. And you see along the edge, the little walkway, it's covered with, actually here, beautiful plant material. And you can walk around view your garden from there, and it goes on all around, sort of makes a big U. Or you can stay out of the rain or the sun while someone else is digging in your garden. A meditation center in your garden, once again, sitting on a little pond of water to bring you, that sort of total experience of health in the garden. Then we have the Californians came to Chelsea with the Fetzer Biodynamic Garden there up in the Marin County, and they did win a gold. Everybody thought they were quite wonderful. They're not only sustainable, organic, but biodynamic, which means they take the fertilizer from cows that have been raised on that area, and it's put into horns, and during certain phases of the moon buried in the garden to mature. So it's sort of nothing leaves. Everything is used again. But as we see here, there's the windmill recycling the water. There are plants that discourage bugs on the vines, and for the bugs that aren't discouraged, there are birdhouses to encourage birds. And then once again, the really wonderful thing is, they don't have a bottle of wine on this table, they should, is that humans are invited to come and sit enjoy the garden. And so you do need a table to get together and enjoy the wine and the garden and nature and everything. Now, this is my favorite garden, and we're almost at the end. It's done by a young Italian, Luciano Guibibelli, and he comes from a very old Sienese banking family, and he went to London, gave up banking, and studied landscape design at the Itchbald School, and then Kew or Wisley. And then he goes out to Great Dixter to dig in the garden on the weekends with, you know, Fergus, and actually Fergus was the person from Great Dixter who did this beautiful lupin garden. And once again, these little balls are sort of loose, but we do know they're balls, and they're not quite circles. They're almost our famous squash pancakes. And looking back, and so you do have grass, which is, you know, sort of very British to have grass, especially if you haven't mowed in patterns. But you also see the soil that's left bare. The and so you don't need a lot of chemicals for your lawn to keep it beautiful or have it look sort of less than beautiful if you let it go natural. This garden, speaking of plant material, they had to make a separate prize for this garden and a separate category because it's made out of plasticine, which is a old invention of sort of like a mixture of slime, plastic, and Play-Doh. And they got all these school children and all these veterans and other groups, probably garden clubs, to mold all of these beautiful little flowers. And they installed it as a garden in Chelsea. And I'm afraid it might be where we're all going with what's happening with global warming and trees all dying and the horrors that are facing us. But in the meantime, while we can enjoy this, the tree, if you notice, is doing it's fruiting, it's blooming, it's showing the fall colors, and then just its beautiful branch structure. So you have it all the time. And of course, underneath, you have the British picnic. This was James May, who used to do, is it Car Talk? Now, with global warming, we're not in the Earth. We're not going to all leave the Earth and go to Mars, even though Elon Musk would love us to do that. This is an imaginary space station that would be set up by the astronauts to keep them from feeling too homesick. You'd have a thermal hot spring, and you grow a little olive tree and a few other little plants, veggies that would remind you of home. But that's a nice fantasy, but we know there's no water on Mars, so it's not too much of an option for us. And we're not going to join Ringo Starr in his octopus garden under the sea either, I don't think. So we come back to the idea of how are we going to be sustainable. In this garden, they've taken old packing crates and scaffolding to build the fence. They've incorporated, instead of the traditional trellis form, now protects the solar panels. And so the solar panels run the water for the garden, they run the lights in the garden, they probably run some of the house electricity, depending on what's needed. But on a larger scale, you could do it for a whole town. And this garden by Chetwick and Collins, they did a huge sculpture that responded to the sun, the phases of the moon, the wind. It collected rain, and the rainwater was collected in here, and they ran down into troughs and were probably stored before it was supplied to the whole village. And so, you know, this isn't quite there yet, but it's, you know, it's what people are trying to think about how to survive. And I think that we have to think about our core plants and what kind of plants we're going to have. These are beautiful irises, and they're so carefully wrapped with their little, tied with their little pink bows to keep them from coming into bloom too soon, because it's can be too hot, and it will change our plant material. And we need to think about our trees, and we need to think about the fungus now. And people in the book club know about that. It's a wonderful book by Merlin Sheldrake on fungus that the book club is reading, and I suggested everybody might want to read it. It's something that we once again need to think about. So even though this year Chelsea didn't happen, and everybody said, oh no, 550,000 members, what are we going to do? And so the RHS said, well, we're going to have a contest, and the members can send in pictures of their garden, and we will choose the members' garden of the year. And this is the garden that won the members' garden of the year. And you can see in it, there's the pavilion that we always see, or someplace out of the elements in the garden. You see beautiful flowers, you see the boxwood balls, you see the herbs, you see their vegetables incorporated with the flowering sort of regular, flowers that are grown just for delight. And I thought that was just very interesting. The other thing that you can see that's definitely in this garden is the owners love it and they care for it. So my message basically is that man and nature really, man is really part of nature. We're not trying to control nature. Even Louis XIV wasn't doing that in his garden when everything was clipped and, as we say, tortured. We're part of nature, and that's just what happens. And so you can have a situation in a garden, or you can seek nature in the woods. This is sort of a fantasy woodland garden, but it's a woodland garden. And so for myself, I would like to end up in a little garden hut down at the end of my garden. And I'd like you to all think about, because I know you all do, it's like preaching to the choir, talking to you, the RHS's goals of inspiring everyone to grow. And so now I think that I am through, and I think that Barbara comes back with the Q&As if anybody has any questions.
I haven't seen any questions yet. It was a great presentation. Just so beautiful. Some of those flowers, the blues in that one garden were stunning.
Barb, I'm going to interrupt for one moment with one question I saw. Did we remember to record this? We were going to, and I think
I started it, but I started it late because I didn't see it. I couldn't remember if it was you or me, but when I saw we weren't recording, I turned it on at about the slide with the judges.
Okay, great. Well, there's the answer to that question. So I'll let you take it from here, Barb.
Does anyone have any questions? You can, let's see. Trish Mitchell says, what year were these pictures taken, or is it over many years?
They're taken over basically about 10 years. I was there for 17 years, but I think my older pictures are on the, an old hard drive, and God, I've got so many pictures of Chelsea that I didn't, I never went back really to look, except for a few of them that I pulled out for earlier lectures that I've given.
Well, this really, really was a treat. And are there more questions here?
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay.
Just a lot of compliments.
Natasha, I know how much work you put into creating this, and technology is not always our best friend, but you endured.
It was my pleasure.
Well, we loved it. I loved getting my cup filled up with this today. These pictures were fabulous. I have not been, I've been wanting to go, and this just inspires me. I'm there. One of these days I'm there. So one last thing, Kate sent me a text saying that the RSVP is now open for the conservation study group, and it's open to everyone. So go on 30 Day News and you can click right in and sign up for that, and or RSVP rather. And also, for those of you who tried to RSVP for the November meeting, you beat Susan to it a little bit. So you now can go in and sign up to RSVP for the November meeting. Is there anything else to add?
There was one question about what happens to the plant material.
Oh, the plant material usually is recycled into a garden. If a city has sponsored the garden, like Dermot's garden with the flying pink object spaceship, that's in Leeds now. I think that, I don't know if the spaceship is operational all that often, because it's sort of, you know, expensive to run it, but everything goes somewhere. And then a lot of the growers that are just selling their plant material, you know, exhibit showing what you can order from them, you can actually buy it the last Saturday of the show and walk home with it. And you see people carrying the largest plants off the showground. And so everything, you know, nothing goes to waste. It's all given or used somewhere, or even sold as a whole garden. Prince Charles, usually when he does a garden, takes it all back to Highgrove, and, you know, he's got a lot of land there and he just has another garden.
Becky Stern was wondering if there are specific learnings for our environment.
Well, I think it's an attitude, you know, more than anything, is that you have to be conscious of what you're doing, what you're planting, what works in, you know, things are constantly changing. Even I was down at the Presidio recently, and they're replanting along this waterway they're putting in with native plants, but the native plants aren't going to be happy natives much longer because of the climate change. And that the Kirstenbach, the Botanic Garden in South Africa recently at Chelsea, did an exhibit of the plant material is actually moving itself, for in their case, northward, because the climate is getting too hot. And the birds, you know, they drop their seeds further north and they start, the plants start growing there. And so it's very interesting that the plants are actually moving themselves.
You know, along those lines, Mary Hefty was wondering how long it's been since they've been incorporating climate change into the theme of the gardens.
Oh, way before the United States did, way before the GCA. And that was always something I felt very strongly and badly about, was that the GCA had to be so careful before they realized that there was, in fact, climate change. And so the Brits have caught on. You know, they live on a very small island, and they're very dependent on their agriculture to feed themselves. And they know that there are times when they're not going to get food from anywhere else, like they found in the war. And so they're concerned. And now they're growing. Prince Charles is growing champagne grapes in England. Oh. So that they're definitely worried about it. I mean, Europe is. We should be much more than we are. Actually, I'm going to go tomorrow and send text messages for Greenpeace.
Natasha, thank you so much once again. I don't see any new questions. However, there are so many comments. I hope you can read the chats. I'll leave the screen on for a bit. Everyone is just so appreciative and really enjoyed this.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing your beautiful gardens. I must say that I'm always amazed when I come down to Woodside and see what's going on out down there, what's
Wonderful.
growing.
Well, hopefully we can get Leslie Quist to pull that together for us. Okay, thank you. And thank you, everyone. It was nice to see you, and we will be in touch. Don't forget to look at the website and check out each of the different committee pages. Bye, everyone.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Natasha, you were fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, what a treat. Oh, it was amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it was
I
great.
felt like I was on a little vacation just then.
I know.
I want to see your films, Natasha. They sound fabulous too.
They are. There's a whole shelf of them behind me somewhere.
It was really a treat. Thank you.
It was, as I said, it was my pleasure. I loved Woodside Atherton Garden Club.
We
I
love
don't want to leave the meeting.
It was a gift for all of us. Thanks again.
That's for sure. Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Natasha.